The War is Over, the Stonehouse Series, Chapter 36. From the cavernous expanse echoed a reverberating rumble, which caused his entire body to tremble. It sounded like rolling rocks bouncing off each other as they fell through shifting space. Another sharp, grating sound lifted up with pronounced resonance, which prolonged the agony. It was inevitable that this would happen, a probability when he chose this course of action, or more accurately, his chosen lack of action. There was an immediate solution to the dilemma he now faced, but unwilling he was to take it. There it was again. He glanced at the faces closest to him. They heard it too. It will pay out. This was my choice, and I would do it again. Think about something else. Change the thought line of your mind, and then the noise will stop. John looked over at him and asked, "Getting a little hungry, are we now, Jesus?" "Yes, a bit, but there are only a couple of miles to go. I can almost smell it now." "Maybe you should have had some breakfast, or at least a little lunch." Jesus answered, "Let me see, Matthew's biscuits or Martha's cooking. I will wait. Maybe they got emailed to fix a roast lamb." "I can hear you think about it," John replied, referring to the rumbling coming from Jesus' stomach. Benjamin appeared, running towards them from over a small hill. Within a minute, he was standing before the crowd of men. "A message?" "2 words only, roast lamb, and I am to get a head count." 24, answered Jesus. "By the time I get back, you should be 30 minutes away." "Thanks, Ben. Tell Simon we're hungry and we'll see you soon." The view of Stonehouse from across the valley was an impressive sight, an elegant stone castle on a hill. Behind them and to their right were fading remnants of a celebrated sunset. In front of them, flickering light was being broadcast from every window in the house. There was a row of candles burning brightly on each windowsill, twin rows of torches up stone steps. 6 stone jars filled with water were lined up near the entry, a refreshing washing place for those arriving at the feast. Simon and Martha were together, standing just inside the entry to greet their guests. "Jesus, my friend, it is so good to see you. You and yours are welcome in our home." "Thank you, Simon, Martha. This is so grand, and I am grateful. Also, considering your preparations, I would like to ask you, is it possible the 2 of you have news?" "It's been some time since I've seen a dinner set like this. About 3 years now, 6 stone washing jars for guests, lined up in a row. Sometimes 3 jars and sometimes 4, but it was 6 jars at the wedding, although they did run out of wine." Simon clarified, "Until you turn the dirty water into wine. We won't run out of wine here, but the 6 clay jars were set up at Martha's request. And to answer your question, yes, I have asked for her hand in marriage, and Martha has answered yes." "Well, yes, this is such wonderful news," answered Jesus as he reached out his hands to his friends. As they placed their hands in his, he said, "This is an excellent union I forever bless, and always empowered to prosper." "Thank you, my Lord," responded Martha, with little tears of joy escaping the corners of her eyes. "Your words are priceless to me." Gazing into the background, Martha watched for a moment as the line of guests moved along the water jars, each washing up to the elbow. Servants were also present to wash the feet of those who so desired. There has been a connection between the two of you for as far back as I can remember. Martha wondered, and how far is that? Well, you were just learning to walk when I first met you. You were here with your father. I was about 5 at the time. Simon, I'm sure you remember this. Well, how could I forget it? I had never seen any other children before that day, ever. And you came into my home, my cave. What? Martha gasped. I was down there before? When? Why? The entryway was quieter now. Most of the guests had gone to find Lazarus and to hear more of the story John had been telling them about. Lazarus had become famous, one man who had first-hand conversations with Adam and Eve, Moses, David, and many more. They all planned ways of getting him to talk and then to sit and listen. Jesus began his answer. Joseph and my mother had taken me to Egypt. My dad had been instructed in a dream by my personal angel to escape Egypt and to stay there. Years later, my dad had another dream and received instructions from my same angel to bring us back to Israel. As soon as we got back to this area, he went to find the friends he had trusted. That was Simon's father, Anna, and your father, Martha. They had become good friends during the year and a half that we had lived nearby. We came to Stonehouse first, and I think we met in the caves because it was getting hard for Anna to get up and down the ladder. Then, looking at Simon, Jesus asked, I'm not telling Martha something about Stonehouse that I shouldn't say, am I? No, not at all. I told her, and a select few, but I did wait to hear her say yes before I showed them more of Stonehouse. Simon and I walked you around the caves, continued Jesus, one of us on each side with you holding onto our fingers to keep from falling. They must have talked for hours, and we just kept watching over you and explored the caves. As I remember, it is a beautiful place. The caves are beautiful, responded Martha, a bit bewildered. I wondered why it looked so pleasantly familiar. Simon, you never told me. Why? I did say that I've always been fond of you and who you are to me. Simon led the way to the veranda and the comfortable chairs. The temperature was perfect. It was going to be a beautiful night. Jesus let a sigh of relief escape his lips as he relaxed into his favorite comfy chair. Martha was beaming with brightness, but also wanted to know what came next, and asked, So then what happened? Well, my mom liked being close to Anna, so rather than stay in the upstairs house, we stayed in the caves that night. Joseph received another dream with instructions, again from my angel, and we left that next day for Nazareth, and we lived there. Lazarus had escaped the disciples' questions for a moment to say hello to Jesus. He walked up and interrupted. Just as I promised, no grand entrance for me this time, just my own unique, happy, peaceful presence. He was munching on something. Jesus smelled what Lazarus was eating and asked, Is Ben or Emil around? I think they are both out working on the roast lamb, answered Martha. Maybe Lazarus could take you by the before-dinner snack table and then to where they are working. That would be good, Martha. Thank you. We will talk later, Simon. 2 of the field workers turned kitchen helpers were just leaving with the first roast lamb as Lazarus brought Jesus to Ben and Emil. Jesus was eating fresh fruit from the table, but he smelled the second roast lamb slowly turning above the coals, and his stomach rumbled again. "The three have been kept safe," stated Jesus, referring to Lazarus and his sisters as he greeted Ben and Emil. "This is a good thing. How was your trip to town?" "One of the temple guards was going to split me with his sword, but Emil rescued me." "They left me no choice, Jesus. They were intent on killing us both." "It was only seconds, and both men were dead. Emil cut them up to pieces." Emil added, "It was Scarface with the guard." "You have looked to my father and me for protection," stated Jesus. "It would be wisdom for them to leave you alone." "Their strength was gone from them, I know. I wasn't there alone. Thank you, Jesus." It is part of what Spirit Helper will do when you let him. David's mighty men didn't do what they did on their own, and neither did Samson. Do you have plans in place to keep all three in one undamaged piece? Ben was remembering words they had heard. "The chief priests are bent on murdering Lazarus and his sisters." "My sisters and I will live in the caves for a couple of weeks, and Ben will stay at our place and take care of the gardens." "That will be enough," said Jesus, and then to Ben he added, "Don't sleep in the house. Have your bedroll in the greenhouse or sleep at your house." "Yes, sir, I will do that." Back at the main entry, Esther approached Martha. "Pardon me, Mistress Martha. I've been trying to find Mary. I haven't seen her for hours and hours. She was going to help me with some stuff. Not that I need the help, but I'm concerned about her." "I haven't seen her for quite a while. Ask your mom. She seems to be able to track everything and everyone around her kitchens." Esther left and was back in less than a minute. "Mistress Martha, Hannah said she saw Mary walking down the road away from the house hours ago." "What?" "Find Ben and Emil, bring them up to speed, and tell them Martha said, please find that girl. She shouldn't be out there at all, but now it's black dark outside." Within 5 minutes, Ben, Emil, and 2 of Simon's trained servants were moving north, tracking Mary's trail. Ben said, "The only thing that makes sense is that she went home for something." "Even so, she should have taken a bodyguard with her. After our trip to town, I don't trust anyone from the temple. There were voices in that room I have known all my life." Their trip to town sat on the doorstep of Ben's thoughts. "Emil, Jesus is going to face a terrible death. Just reading some of what David wrote is more than I can imagine. Every prophecy will be fulfilled, down to the most minute detail, but I have found nothing in the written word about Lazarus and his sisters being damaged. That would be just the fallen angel doing wicked things, and we can stop that. We have the right and the power." Cresting a small hill, Emil strained his eyes, looking through the darkness. Torches. Maybe I should have brought torches. No, that would just make us easy to see. A bad idea if we were ambushed. Ben was anxious and edgy, and it made him think out loud. In one place it's written, "I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep will scatter." It's in a sequential order that the shepherd gets struck first. Emil remembered. David wrote a psalm. It goes into graphic detail. The beating. Jesus, Emil shook his head and tightly gripped the long blade handle that he had strapped on his hip. They were more than halfway to the house of Lazarus. Lazarus refused to talk about it, but I saw him once. He was curled up in a ball, just weeping in agony, and I thought that he had gotten hurt or was terribly sick. But when he calmed down, where he could talk, he just mumbled something about what he saw. When his body was in the grave, something about Jonah thrashing in the stomach acid of a whale for 3 days, and Jesus in hell for 3 days. 8 eyes scanned the darkness, and they walked in silence for a ways, their ears straining to pick up some distant sound. The moon was just breaking through the clouds in the night sky, bringing its reflective light with it. About 1/4 a mile in front of them, a lone figure emerged from dark shadows, cautiously moving towards them.